I flipped a coin 100 times and every single time it landed heads up. I was on the verge of a breakdown. I had planned to use coin tosses to guess the answers to the true or false questions, but now I glanced at the teacher on the podium. He was still buried in his lesson plans. With no other choice, I had to skip the true or false section and turn to the multiple choice questions. Then, I pulled a dice-shaped eraser out of my pencil case and quietly rolled it, full of suspense. Alright, next question. Pick A. The one after that. Pick A. All 20 multiple choice questions, I ended up picking A. No, this can't be right. There must be something wrong with the die. I took out my ruler and cut open the eraser die, but the white inside proved its innocence, silently declaring it was blameless. Looks like the problem was with me all along. If my ability was to pick the correct answer 100% of the time, I think people would probably worship me. But clearly, judging by the current situation, my ability is to turn a probabilistic event into a predetermined one. It's like how I'm now repeatedly making the ruler fall off the desk. And the ruler will always land standing upright on the floor. Li Fang, what are you doing? The teacher suddenly called out from the podium. Teacher, could you come take a look? I raised my hand and said in a hurry. The teacher got up and walked over to me with a puzzled look. I lifted the water bottle to signal the teacher to watch closely. The other students taking the exam also looked at me in confusion. Just like before, I rolled the water bottle off the desk, and after tumbling several times, it landed perfectly upright on the floor. But it was obvious that the teacher thought I was trying to make a fool of him. Just as he was about to lose his temper, I quickly picked up the water bottle again and pushed it off the desk. Watching the bottle land upright on the floor once more, the teacher was stunned for a moment, then asked, "Is this fun?" I nodded, then immediately shook my head. Amidst the teacher's lecture and my classmates' jeers, I managed to make the bottle land upright 4 more times. As the scolding and the jeering gradually died down, I knew they had realized the seriousness of the situation. The teacher asked, "Do you dare to try one more time?" I did it several more times in a row, and it was as if I was under some kind of spell. The bottle always landed upright. The silence at that moment was like a pool of glue, sealing everyone's mouths shut in the classroom. It wasn't until a group of people in white lab coats appeared outside the classroom door and entered without a word. When they saw the shocked expressions on everyone's faces and the glances occasionally cast in my direction, they must have guessed what had happened. So a few of them walked straight toward me and said, "Xiao Tong, student, don't be afraid. We know what's happened to you. Come with us, we'll find a way to handle this." The confused teacher tried to stop them, but at that moment, the principal appeared at the door and said sternly, "Let them go." "But principal, Li Feng is still..." The teacher tried to protest but was cut off. The principal walked over, patted me on the shoulder and said, "Your name is Li Feng, right? Don't be afraid, these uncles and aunties will take good care of you." Then I was taken away by the group in white coats. As I looked back, I saw the principal's face full of regret, and I could vaguely hear him say, "This child's life path is probably locked in." The people in white coats took me to a research institute. When I arrived, I saw that besides myself, there was also a group of adults with equally puzzled expressions, both men and women. We were all arranged to sit in a place that looked like a conference hall. After a short while, a middle-aged man with a worried look on his face walked in. He looked like a very distinguished scientist. "Citizens, my name is Hong Yu. I am the chief director of all research projects at this institute. You can call me Professor Hong. First, I must apologize to all of you for the mistake made by our institute." Professor Hong's words only made the already confused crowd even more bewildered. Due to our mistake, all of you here experienced some strange phenomena a few hours ago." Professor Hong said, "That's right. Today, when I played basketball, I made every shot, even with my eyes closed." An excited man in a sports jersey exclaimed loudly. But it was different for me," a company employee in a white shirt said unhappily, holding his hand. "In my office, no matter how close I was, I couldn't throw a paper ball into the trash can." It was only after hearing their conversation that I realized I wasn't the only one who had experienced something strange. "That's because the probabilities in your lives have been locked," Professor Hong said seriously. This was exactly what I had heard from the principal not long ago. Professor Hong continued. 5 hours ago, we launched a research experiment on parallel universes, and at the same time, we proved that parallel universes do indeed exist in our world. The number of outcomes is enormous. Basically, every different decision each person makes every second creates a parallel universe. However, due to some oversights during the experiment, our actions disturbed the stability of the parallel universes, which resulted in some citizens across the city, namely you all, being affected. You are no longer able to generate parallel universes, and every decision you make has become predetermined. Every action that was originally full of probability will now, without exception, result in only one outcome. After Professor Hong finished speaking, the previously quiet room instantly became noisy again. So does that mean that whatever we do and whenever we do it, the outcome has already been predetermined? Is that a correct way to understand it? Is there any downside to this? The real downside only happens with certain probabilistic events related to survival. For example, drinking water. There is a 100% chance you will choke on it. Eating food will 100% cause you to choke, and crossing the road will 100% result in a car accident. Professor Hong explained, of course, once the probabilities in your life are locked in, the course of your life is also set. Even at this very moment, all of you gathering here was predetermined, and the time of your future deaths has also been fixed somewhere along the river of time. Ah, then do we still have a chance to return to normal? We are trying to correct this error, but it will take time, so we hope everyone can cooperate with our work during this period. Professor Hong's tone carried a hint of pleading. In order to ensure everyone's personal safety as much as possible, we hope you can stay here. It was obvious that the people present were not buying it. Someone immediately objected, and the crowd followed, shouting, "This is your mistake. Why should our movements be restricted?" Knowing they were at fault, Professor Hong and the other researchers realized they had no right to demand anything from the crowd, so they had no choice but to send out recorders to document the behaviors and outcomes of these people in probability-related events in order to deduce a model of the life trajectories destined by probability, so as to ensure these people's arrangements as much as possible. Soon, those who were unwilling to stay in the institute gradually quieted down as they left the conference hall, until in the end, I was the only one left standing there. To be honest, I also wanted to leave like they did, to take advantage of my predetermined life and do something significant, but I was also afraid that as soon as I stepped out the door, something unexpected would happen to me on the crosswalk. Oh, I didn't expect that even kids would be affected. Professor Hong walked up to me and asked, "You're in high school, right?" "Yes, I'm a junior." Then, after squatting down for a moment, I added, "Oh, my name is Li Fang." Professor Hong nodded and asked again, "What strange things did you experience before coming here?" I told Professor Hong about how I used to flip coins to answer true or false questions and roll dice to make choices, and I even demonstrated on the spot how the coin would always land standing upright. Although I know the probability of events around you has changed, it's still a bit shocking to see it with my own eyes, he said. "Professor Hong, you said you discovered parallel worlds, right?" Professor Hong was momentarily taken aback. After all, in this kind of situation, most people would only be concerned about their own safety or future, but then he smiled. "Oh yes, countless parallel worlds. You seem very interested. Although my grades aren't very good, I'm really fascinated by these strange and mysterious topics. Let me take you to have a look, to see the machine we use to peer into parallel worlds," Professor Hong said, although I no longer dare to turn it on. I followed Professor Hong into the institute's elevator. I saw him press the lowest button, B24. As a feeling of weightlessness washed over me, the elevator sped rapidly downward. "Did you see it with your own eyes?" I asked. What does the parallel world look like?" Professor Hong stroked his chin and replied, "To be more precise, it should be said that we sensed it. The feeling, let me speak from my own experience, the moment the machine was activated, I felt as if I had become a collective of countless versions of myself. I could recall that before that moment, as this collective, I had lived through different lives, even if those lives were not ones I was supposed to experience at this moment." Professor Hong closed his eyes, as if savoring the sensation in his mind. That feeling was very strange, almost unbelievable, like tasting a candy that contains every possible flavor. Even though the flavors are all mixed together, if you savor it carefully, you can still distinguish each individual taste. "Wow, that sounds amazing. I want to try that kind of candy too." I looked at the rapidly changing floor numbers in the elevator and said. With a ding, the elevator chimed, and Professor Hong spoke. "We're here." The elevator door slowly opened, and a massive experimental machine appeared before my eyes. I looked the machine up and down, examining it closely. I had expected it to be a machine as awe-inspiring as the ring-shaped portals in movies, but in reality, what stood before me was just an object that looked like a generator, completely asymmetrical in every direction. The only things that hinted at its purpose were the cables sprawling out from all sides and the crowd of researchers packed tightly around it. Professor Hong looked at me and asked, "You must know about Schrödinger's cat, right? The cat in the superposition of life and death, that's correct. Now let's broaden our perspective. Imagine the cat as ourselves and the universe as the box that encloses all of us. At this moment, the dichotomy is no longer limited to life and death, but extends to the many worlds event. Meaning, within the smallest interval of time quanta, there are countless quantum changes happening in countless ways." I fell into deep thought and then raised a question. Now, we have the box, the cat, and the conditions for the experiment. But who is the observer? Professor Hong showed an expression of approval, saying, "That is precisely the key question, and also the main focus of our research." I walked over to the machine with Professor Hong. "So, what is the purpose of this machine?" I asked. "In simple terms, it's used to pull on the various parallel worlds, allowing us to sense their existence." Professor Hong explained, "In the experiment, the only definite point is the cat. The cat alone knows whether it is alive or dead, just as we know our own current state. With the help of this machine, however, we can experience versions of ourselves in other states, just like the cat finds itself both dead and alive. However, this seemed to have caught the observer's attention." Observation. The fact that the probabilities of your current lives are locked in is the result of being observed by the observer, and up until now, you are still being observed. I instinctively looked up, and through the ceiling above my head, I seemed to sense the feeling of being watched. "So what should we do now? Should we try to close the box? Or Make the observer become a monk? I asked. I don't know. Professor Hong spread his hands and said bluntly, we can only try to do something to divert the observer's attention. Of course, this machine can't be used anymore either. Otherwise, it will only make the observer observe even more people. I touched my chin, thought for a moment, and said, actually, ever since my probability got locked, I've had an idea I've been wanting to try. What idea? Do you have any coins? Professor Hong patted his pockets, took some out and said, I have 2, just enough. Do you have any tape? Yes. After I took the coins, I started flipping them one by one. After confirming that both coins would only land heads up without needing to explain further, I taped the 2 coins together. Both coins' heads were now facing the same way. Professor Hong immediately understood what I wanted to do, so he quickly covered my hand and said, let's go somewhere else. Led by Professor Hong, a group of researchers took me to a remote open area, a place the military used to test all kinds of new explosives. In a moment, throw the coin out like a sandbag, as far as you can, Professor Hong explained. Although I knew that with the probability locked, no one could imagine how a coin with heads on both sides would land, treating it like a bomb seemed a bit excessive. Once everyone was ready, I took a deep breath. What started as simple curiosity now turned into intense nervousness. Then, I hurled the coin out with all my strength. The next second, the researchers quickly pulled us back into the safety zone of the blast testing area. Watching it, the coin traced a perfect arc through the air. Everything seemed completely normal, until, without any warning, the coin suddenly stopped in midair about 1 or 2 meters above the ground, showing no sign of inertia at all. Seeing this, the researchers immediately sent out an unmanned vehicle to observe. The footage transmitted back from the vehicle showed that the coin was spinning wildly in midair. It started at 5 revolutions per second, gradually increasing to 100 revolutions per second, and was still accelerating. Pointing at the coin spinning faster and faster on the screen, I asked, what should we do about this? Professor Hong didn't answer me. He just stared at the screen, looking extremely tense and saying nothing. Soon, a researcher nearby came out holding the calculation results and said, after eliminating all interference, the theoretical rotational speed of this coin will reach its maximum in 30 minutes, which is the speed of light. Its mass will also reach the theoretical maximum. Although I had some understanding of the relationships they were talking about, at that moment, I was even more fascinated by the way the coin was behaving, because the high-speed rotation of the coin was related to those theories. Your jaw will drop. The whole room is becoming electrified. Look at it. It's starting to glow. I pointed at the screen and said. Professor Hong stared intently at the monitor and exclaimed, the energy this thing is generating now is probably much greater than that of a nuclear explosion. Wouldn't it be wonderful to use it as a perpetual motion machine? Heh, I replied excitedly. That's a great idea, but this perpetual motion machine is something the entire Earth couldn't handle. Professor Hong said, it won't be long before this thing becomes something beyond theoretical understanding. But judging from the current state of that coin, we've learned a key piece of information. What information? The priority of probabilistic behavior outweighs all fundamental material theories. I was stunned for a moment, then quickly asked, what does that mean? That coin is nothing more than a piece of man-made copper-nickel alloy, yet it can withstand such immense natural energy without breaking apart. Theoretically, even if it collapsed into a black hole, it would instantly evaporate due to its tiny volume. From this perspective, as long as the event of landing heads up continues to occur, the coin should not stop spinning. Beads of sweat were faintly visible on Professor Hong's forehead, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the matter around us shares the same priority as the coin. The most critical thing right now is still to make it stop. But at that very moment, the previously tense scene suddenly turned into a vase. And at this moment, the previously sturdy safety partition also began to shake violently. It's too late, said the researcher next to Professor Hong, holding his notebook. I'm afraid we can no longer get close to that hardware, and even our own safety is threatened. The partition was instantly ripped from the ground, exposing all of us to the combined environment. With nothing to grab onto, we were dragged out by a powerful force. In that critical moment, the light emitted from the coin could be said to have brought us as close as possible to the position of the 6th ion. It wasn't until a few minutes later that I gradually regained my vision. When I looked at the coin again, I found that it had actually disappeared. Professor Hong, rubbing his aching back from the fall, squinted up at the sky and said, I think we've already attracted the attention of the observer. Yes.